Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the SADAG Counsellor webinar. We have been promising you guys a lot of times that these webinars are going to come back, and here we have it. We are looking at having counselor webinars at least 2 times a month, and this is for the purpose of you learning as a counselor and you growing as a counselor. And today we are going to be doing a topic that is very, very close to my heart, and I'm sure to all of you guys' hearts as well, where we will be looking at ways of how to help callers who have been financially affected by COVID-19. How many times have you had callers who call in and are crying and are sad and are stressed out because someone has lost their job, or because they have lost their businesses, or they've had a salary cut, or they don't know how to deal with their debt? So this is what this webinar is about. We have got a number of experts that are here today that will be sharing all of these informations with us. Okay, so before I even go to the speakers, I'd like to talk about the rules of the webinar and the rules of engagement. Okay, and I know there's still people coming in. I hope they already know these rules. Okay, so the first one is that this session is meant to be highly interactive. So please kindly keep your cameras on if the network permits. So if you can hear and see while your video is on, please do so. This also helps the speakers to be able to interact with your faces, your facial expressions. It makes everything just smooth and nice. And because this is a computer, it is difficult. It's not the same experience that you have when you're with a person live, right? And then for sound quality and to prevent interruptions, please always keep your mic on mute. And I also have Tracy, who is our tech support today, who will be making sure that everyone's microphones is on mute. And then, guys, for questions, I am sure that you guys will have questions after these amazing speakers. So after they finish talking, just post your questions on the chat box, okay? And I will ask them to answer. Some of the questions that Tracy and I can answer, we'll also try to answer on the chat box. This is so that we do not have pressure at the end of the session to have speakers answer questions, because we may not have enough time. So if you have a question, post it on the chat box and I will ask the speakers to answer the questions. And then, guys, it is important to remain attentive throughout the webinar. This brings me to the first or second point, that having your camera on allows you to be attentive. I know for a fact that sometimes with our videos off, we end up cooking, doing our laundry, and doing all of these things while we are in a webinar. So please try to have your camera on, and please be attentive, because this is information that we all need. As a support group leader, if you're here, you need this information. As a counselor, if you're here, you need this information. Okay, so let me see. Okay, speakers of the day. Yay. So the first speaker we have is Craig Tartan, who is a financial advisor. So he's the first person that is going to speak to us about how to manage our finances during this time. And then we've got Annalene and Neil, who work at Debt Rescue. So they will be teaching us about how to manage debt and how to avoid getting into a position where we are over indebted because of the pandemic. And then we've got Lebu and Akona from a South African Social Security Agency, best known as SASSA, and they will be talking to us about grants. So how do we refer people to SASSA? Who qualifies for a grant, and how many grants and different grants we have, and also how people can get access to them, okay? And then we have got, last but not least, we will have Utolagele Mtunu, who is from the National Youth Development Agency, NYDA, and she will be talking to us about how to look for a job, how to start a business, the fundings that NYDA gives to the youth. And a lot of our callers are also youth, so we will learn a lot from Utolagele with regards to this. All right, let's see if, Craig, are you on?
I am here, Sinzikile. How's it?
Hi. Hi.
Oh, good afternoon.
Craig, let us see if you are
Yep.
able to share your screen, and then maybe you can introduce yourself and what you do, just so that I'm sure that you have done justice to yourself with that regard, and you can be ready to go.
Cool. How does that look? Is that, can you see the whole
I
slide there?
can see,
You might-
but maybe you can do a slideshow. Perfect. Yeah, we can
So is
see
that
that.
is that the full slide there, or can you see? Is it
Yes, we
you?
can see it. I think we can go with this. Yeah.
Um, just wait. How does that look? There we go. I think that's better.
Perfect. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So yeah, thank you for the intro, and thank you everyone, and all the counselors, and just from my side, just a big thank you for for what you guys do for society, and for helping people out there. Hey, it's amazing work that you do. I know Cassie very well, and I just can't just speak highly enough of you guys and your organization. So thank you for everything that you guys do for us. Eh? So hopefully my presentation can help just sort of equip yourselves with having some conversations with the clients that do phone in and have some financial difficulties and ways around them. And since Akilia, are we taking questions as we go in terms of being interactive, or are we going to save them for the end?
So they will be posting questions on the chat box. And then once you finish with your presentation, please kindly go to the chat box and see if there are any questions for you to answer.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right, cool. So effects of financial stress on your health. So financial stress affects us all in very different ways, and it can have very serious effects, as we all know. We've got insomnia, we've got weight gain, weight loss, depression. We can go through times of anxiety. Financial stress can result in some relationship difficulties, social withdrawal, and physical, ailments. Physical ailments could be heart attacks, and strokes, things like that obviously cannot be ignored. I personally, during this time, or more so at the beginning, I did suffer from, social withdrawal sort of symptoms. I got very anxious, and, I did go through periods of insomnia. So, I can relate to some of the stresses around finances that COVID has brought on us. So it needs to be addressed. So I've broken it down into external and internal pressures, which I think a lot of us have faced. So from an external point of view, we've got job security. So a lot of us get stressed and anxious around how the businesses that we're working for are doing, and is my job safe? We've had times during COVID where we've had medical emergencies. So that could be, yourself, family members, whoever it is getting sick, and maybe, you needing to help with those costs. A lot of us stress about the global economy, the South African economy. There's lots of news, lots of media, lots going around on social media, that contributes to our stress and our anxiety. So that stress that we're feeling from a financial point of view can often just be, exasperated when you have, all these other stresses that are being thrown at us all the time. An interesting stat is that, or let me just move on over here. Internal pressures. So, we've got control. So a lot of clients have gone into a change in spending patterns. So entertainment and travel budget has gone to more home improvements. A lot of us, might have been doing a lot more, online shopping. So that's not necessarily shopping at, Checkers or Pick and Pay or whatever it is. It could be buying stuff that's not needed at the moment. So it's being able to control, those spending habits. We've been through change. So it's also there learning how to manage and change and adapt according to the situations that we're in at the moment. And a big one for me is communication. So, have you been communicating with your partner about your finances, about how you're feeling, about the stresses, what's going on at work, and don't be embarrassed to seek help, and being able to take action. And I think a big part of communication is being able to talk about it, but also, being able to listen, to your spouse or to your partner or to your kids or to your parents, as to, what stresses they're going through. Hey. So the first, the first tool that we can speak about, with clients who are going through, a bit of financial stress at the moment is around budgeting. And, why is budgeting so important? And I think budgeting is the first step when it comes to managing any financial plan. It can make or break, anyone. So my first port of call would be, what does your budget look like? Are you overspending? Do you have a surplus at the end of the month? And on this presentation, I've put, 5 apps that we can use, to help somebody track their spending. So Sinzakele, if it's okay with you, we can share, that link, to the counsellors, and they could perhaps then share those, with any clients or anyone that does phone in. But there's some really good stuff out there that helps you, track what you're spending and being able to build a budget and look after it from that point of view. So what to consider in your budget. So, look at what comes in, that's obviously your salary after tax and after deductions, and understand, all those amounts that are going out, all those expenses and where they're going. And it's a good time right at the beginning of COVID. One of the good things about COVID at the time, one of the few good things was that, we had a bit more time, so we were able to sit and revisit and look at our finances. So there's no better time than now to sit and just revisit that budget and revisit your expenses, and just look at your spending habits and where you're spending too much, and where possibly you can save more. Look for cost saving opportunities, so it's a good time to do that. So, your short-term insurance, maybe you can benefit from saving on your car or household insurance, whatever it can be. Go and shop around and get some quotes. Medical aid, if you are going through a bit of a financially stressful time at the moment, maybe it's a good time to just revisit your medical aid. And that's not something to take lightly. Reducing your medical aid contributions is a lot to take into account there. But if it is a tough time, maybe that's one area that you could look at. And then, obviously your general spending, your groceries, and then look at your debt. And I know that Annalena and Neil are going to be speaking next around debt. And I think one of the big things from just a holistic financial point of view is just, to understand how to manage your debt. What are the small steps to take to get out of debt? We've got good and we've got bad debt. And there's perhaps a possibility at this point in time where we are now to restructure your debt, which I'm sure that the guys from Debt Rescue are going to touch a little bit more on. One of the big downfalls that we find in clients' portfolios when they are struggling financially, guys, is that they don't have an emergency account. So an emergency account is a bank account where the money is readily available. You can access it at any time. It doesn't happen overnight, but you build this emergency account over a period of time. And usually what we say there is 3 to 6 months worth of expenses to sit into this account. And that can take care of any unforeseen emergencies that do come up. We must learn from this pandemic and understand that, emergencies and crises can pop up at any time. And this is the perfect time for an emergency account to have assisted us financially in getting through an emergency. So, we should have, again, 3 to 6 months worth of expenses just sitting in cash, which would allow for that. And then I'll just add it on here as well. When we're talking about finances and time on our hands, it's a good time to look at your will and make sure that your will is correctly structured at this point in time. And we've also got a nice link here where you can calculate what your emergency account should sit at, and then also an online will generator that sits with Momentum that you can go on there and do a will for free. Okay, so a lot of questions that we've had from clients recently as well is, struggling financially and I need to access some of my investments. So there's no easy way to answer this, and especially from your guys' point of view, from an advisory point of view, you don't really want to be, giving, financial advice. So I think the recommendation there could be to speak to somebody, in the industry that you do know, who can help you assess your finances, to say, okay, well, if you access this investment, these are the implications, these are the costs, these are the downfalls, and don't just access any investment because there are some, tax implications, long-term effects that it could have on your investment portfolio. So if you do need, or if a client does need to access an investment, just make sure that they do get some sort of advice to help them and understand what the consequences are of accessing those investments. I think that accessing an investment is probably the easiest way to get out of financial difficulties, but just make sure that you understand what the consequences are there to your investment portfolio. Just from an understanding point of view, and I thought this slide would help a little bit when it comes to speaking to clients. So what has changed in our household? So if we just look at the overall figure there in grey, the top line there says cut back on discretionary spending. So 57% of South Africans have had to cut back on what they're spending month to month, which is a drastic figure. 43% have had to cancel subscriptions or memberships. 35% have had to cancel or reduce digital services. So that list goes on there. And I think these are all possible financial ways in which we can save, and that you can have conversations with your clients to say, well, have you looked at your Wi-Fi costs? Have you looked at your different subscriptions, your different memberships that you do have? Maybe you don't need it for this year. Maybe they can give you a bit of leeway or reduce discounts. So open those conversations with the different people. If you do have debt, again, I'm sure Annalena and Neil will talk about it, but I'm sure there's payment plans that a lot of these companies are very happy to chat about during this crisis. So people who phone in and are struggling financially, they're not alone. There was a stat that showed 85% of South Africans have been affected financially, by COVID, which is a massive number. So if somebody's phoning in, they're not alone. They mustn't be embarrassed about it. They mustn't be shy about it. But at the same time, don't put your head in the sand, and you've got to just go out there and take action and fix what it's actually doing to you. So the last slide that I have is around building financial resilience, and this is the ability to withstand life events that impact one's income and assets. Some financially stressful events such as unemployment, divorce, disability, and health problems affect people in very different ways. So there's another little link here which I think would help all of us just sort of understand a little bit more what financial resilience is all about. And COVID wasn't a normal occurrence. I mean, we were all taken, off guard. The lesson from this period is that, we do need to plan, for the unexpected, and finances should be on top of the list when it comes to that. And the other thing is, it's going to be here for a while, hey guys. I don't think that, this pandemic is going to disappear, this year, next year, anytime soon. So, so if people are putting their heads in their sand now and just hoping that it's going to go away, I don't think it is. So we need to be able to plan for more long-term impact that it's going to have. So how do we help people who haven't planned right now? So I think the plan there is to again just speak about the loans that you do have, because that's often a lot of the monthly expenditure that we do have, and just find out if there's some sort of payment holidays that we can take. reduce the payments that we are making, negotiate your home loan payments, and then just as we've spoken about through the slides, just revisit those budgets, revisit those expenses. Often we speak about then just equipping yourself, upskilling yourself with new skills in order to generate more income. That's been amazing for me as well, where we've just seen, like entrepreneurs come from, every corner, just being able to generate that extra, 500, 1,000 Rand a month that's going to help you get by. So, become resilient from that point of view, and open up your entrepreneurial skills. Don't worry about accumulation at this point in time. So if you're not growing your wealth, and you're not saving as much as you used to, don't stress about it. Now's a time for survival. Now's a time to get through it. And I think a lot of people and a lot of companies do understand that. Don't compare yourself with others. In the financial planning sector, I see it all the time where people are comparing themselves against their neighbors and, saying, well, they have this and they've bought that during COVID. But we don't understand what they're doing. We don't understand their financial situation. So don't compare yourself to others. They could be struggling in other ways that we don't really know about. So, ask your clients, just don't compare yourself. Get yourself out of your own situation that you're in at the moment. So, so just focus on getting through this time, financially. That's my session. Hey, Sizikile, hope it's helped a little bit.
Thank you so much, Craig. I can tell you one thing, that I myself have learned so much about this, and not only about how I can help callers, but also how I can help myself and my family and my friends. I think the tips that you have given us are very useful in a way that we can give them. And guys, it is important to understand that you're not a financial advisor, okay? But it is important for you to have this information so that you can be able to troubleshoot with your caller to say, maybe this is what we can do, or maybe this is what we can do. What do you think? And also knowing when to refer them to a financial advisor in this regard. So thank you so much, Craig. I really appreciate your presence here today. And guys, if you have any questions for him, please put them on the chat. He will stay for a bit and answer your questions. And then, Craig, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Next,
I'll stay on and listen in. Hey, if that's okay.
Oh, great. Thank you. Next, we've got Annalene and Neil. Are you guys here? I saw Annalene is here. I'm not sure about Neil.
Yes, I'm also here.
He's here. Awesome.
My camera was just off here. No, I'm also here, and I really enjoyed what Craig shared with us, and I think that's very, very insightful. And so what we are basically going to do is tell you a little bit more about debt counseling, and also what we do at Debt Rescue, and what role that plays in these difficult times that we're experiencing. Because let's face it, we're going through very difficult times, and it's not just because of the fact that there are people falling ill, but financially it's devastating times for consumers out there, and it's very, very important now more than ever before to know how to deal with your debt in these circumstances. And look, we as South Africans, we are actually very fortunate in that regard, in that we have the National Credit Act that came into operation in 2007, and it's been streamlined over the last 13 or 14 years, where it's now a proven concept and process in terms of which you can pay off your debt in an affordable manner without losing your assets, because it provides you with legal rights and protection whilst you are paying off your debt, and it also obviously allows you then to pay what you can afford during these times. And that's why it's now so very important know about this process and to make people aware about it, because the biggest challenge that we facing actually with regards to this whole process is the fact that not enough people know about the process, and the help is out there, and it's we've got the best legislation of its kind in the world. And Annalene will tell us a little bit more about the process, but just to give you an idea, so we're the only country in the world where you can actually place your home loan under debt review. So this protection that we get from the Act applies to all your debt, and that's what makes it so wonderful, and where we're so fortunate to have that available to us. So I think what we will do is have Annalene just tell you a little bit more about debt counselling in general, and tell you a little bit more about debt rescue. And then thereafter we can deal with some questions you guys might have.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Neil. Sensakili, can I just confirm, can you see the presentation?
Absolutely, I can see the presentation and I can see you and I can hear you.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us, and hi there to everybody and to all the counsellors, and agreed. Thank you for the great work that you're doing. I think now more than ever, we need this kind of support for people out there. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in here. I am just going to start with a little bit of background here to just see what is the general stuff that consumers are facing, which is leading to them, to their financial circumstances being affected so terribly right now, and more than ever, of course, because of COVID. So 40% of credit active South Africans are over indebted. So that's an astonishing number, and this is from the National Credit Regulator themselves. So they use a combination of various credit bureau information, where the credit providers supply them with the data, and from that they can then establish, and this was at the end of December, so it is about 6 months old, but understanding that this is very indicative. Consumers clearly are facing financial strain here. The 85% financially impacted by lockdown, there was actually some surveys we ran. We've been very, very involved with consumer research during this period more than ever to try and get an understanding what are consumers saying, and we do different kinds of research. And one of the first ones we did was just after the hard lockdown phases were implemented, to start seeing where are things going. And we still ask this question in all of our subsequent surveys to see how severely has it impacted them financially. And as you can see, 85%. Now, this is a combination of short time retrenchments, no payments, during the lockdown, salary reductions, etc. Again, a staggering number of people who are sitting in this specific circumstance. And from TransUnion reports, which is one of the biggest credit bureaus out there, they're saying 46% of people have indicated that they're using credit to repay their debt. So what this just is a clear cycle is, I'm incurring more debt to pay the debt that I have. So I am just ballooning my debt completely out of control, because there are very little options out there for consumers, according to them. We're sitting with record unemployment. As we know, these were very recent stats. 32.6% of South Africans are currently not employed. And this is just on the ones that are still seeking employment. We also know that this number goes wider if we include people who have stopped looking for employment. And putting that into reality, 1.4 million less people are employed than there were 12 months ago. So as a percentage, looking at humans, 1.4 million is a very scary number. And then, and I replicated my stats there at the bottom, excuse me. So if we then jump to the next slide, so what does this mean for consumers, and how does this affect them generally? So first and foremost, as intimidation, aggressive methods that are being used to contact credit providers. Now, this is not new, this has always existed. And there was a period during the harder lockdown phases where the credit providers were, they did soften their approaches and offered payment holidays, etc. But those are over now. The credit providers have gone right back and said, look, well, we've been gracious, but now we need our payments. And the impact on this for a consumer is the average consumer has got roughly between 8 and 14 credit agreements. So this could potentially be between 8 and 14 calls that a consumer is facing, everybody wanting their piece of your salary to repay their debts. So this has a definite effect on consumers. Legal action, because obviously now everybody wants a piece. You're trying to keep everybody at bay, but eventually you've made a commitment that you can no longer keep, and the credit providers then proceed with legal action. And this legal action can be anything from affecting your credit report right down to a possible judgment, and then legal action leading to repossession of assets, so losing houses, losing cars. Sorry, if it just excuse me here. So with all of this, what this leads to is additional fees. So every time when an account gets handed over for collection, you then see them, if attorneys get involved, fees get added onto, the collectors fees get added onto. So that debt just keeps growing and growing. The stress of being over indebted definitely causes serious health issues. I'm sure if anybody, your counselors can speak to that, the emotional stress that this places on them, the fear, etc. And that trickles through to what goes on at home. So this places strain on relationships. They're under duress, and they've got to try and keep their heads above water. For those that are still employed, having to be sidetracked at work by calls or the stresses of not being able to pay bills, etc. And then obviously this becomes counterproductive, because you're sitting with these stress levels at work, you're focusing on the wrong things, and it could lead to a myriad of side effects, and possibly even lead to them facing procedures at work because they're not performing the way they should. So this is then where we come in as debt counsellors. So us ourselves, we're one of South Africa's largest debt counselling companies, and we provide the service of debt counselling, as Neil's indicated, part of the National Credit Act. So this is a legal process. It's there to assist consumers specifically, and it's such an amazing piece of legislation. The foresight here to how do we prevent consumers from facing this legal action, etc. And how does this work? So it's a process where the debt counselor engages the credit providers to renegotiate the original credit agreements you had. And it's a holistic approach. So what this means is we look at, as Neil indicated, all debt. So this would be your home loan, your vehicle, your credit cards, store cards, personal loans, any form of debt you have with registered credit providers, we renegotiate. And part of that renegotiation is reducing the monthly amount that you committed to pay originally in the contract and extending the repayment term. So you pay it back over a longer period of time. But by doing that, it ensures that you're freeing up money in your short-term budget immediately so that you can afford to pay those necessary living expenses, your rent, your food, your transport, school fees, things that people have to pay every month, but they are now having to juggle what gets paid first. It frees up that cash to make sure that they can still pay those necessaries and still honor their debt commitments. And then, so how does the process work? So Craig mentioned budgeting, and I think that's the foundation of everything always. It's a horrible word and most people hate it, but it's something that you have to do. You've got to go and sit and realistically look at your budget. And that's obviously where we come in. We assist the consumer, we guide them there. We look at what their realistic revenue, income expectations are, monthly salaries and the like. And what are their necessary living expenses, all the items already mentioned, and then what do they have available to repay every month towards their debt. And then we go and look at the debt installments. So in other words, what is the minimum required to repay each of these debt credit agreement items? And if there isn't enough money remaining in the budget to repay these minimum debt installments, you're considered to be over indebted. And based on that, once the confirmation is done that a person is over indebted, from there you will then go on to, once the consumer is comfortable, we move into the next process. And that is where we then start negotiating with the credit providers. We will then put forward a plan to them, a new repayment plan, where they can then see this is the process that's going to go ahead from here on forward. So about this is it's an incredibly transparent process. All fees are included, so everybody can see exactly when they're going to be paid, how much they're going to be paid, and there's a lot of background information which might not be applicable to this. But the good thing is the most important thing for the consumer is legal protection. Once a consumer goes under debt review, no new legal action can be started against them. So in other words, no credit provider may then proceed with any form of judgments and the likes. They've got to then abide by this agreement that we enter into. We then go ahead and we make this new repayment plan and order of court, because obviously it's part of the legal process. We are changing credit agreements that were entered into legally as well. And once a consumer has repaid his debt in line with this repayment plan, they get issued with a clearance certificate and they can enter the credit markets again, but debt-free, and start afresh and be able to breathe and start their new credit debt-free life. So the advantages to the consumer is the debt counsellor has the authority to do these restructuring. It's law, and therefore we're entitled to do this. We avoid the legal action, as I've mentioned. Your debt gets repaid, albeit over a longer period of time. Consumers are honouring their debt responsibilities, and credit providers see this as a very positive thing, because instead of a consumer just putting their head in the sand and going, well, what must happen, quite the contrary. The consumer is looking for a solution here. They are looking for a way to honor their credit agreements, but just in a manner that suits their current financial circumstances. Assets are retained because homes and vehicles cannot be repossessed because they cannot start new legal expenses. But most importantly, the living expenses are covered. And this is so fundamental for these consumers, because right now it's exactly that balancing act, or this juggle they've got to enter into between how do I put food on the table, how do I pay the school fees, etc., while I'm still trying to prevent this legal action. This makes sure that their legal expenses are covered, their living expenses are covered, apologies. So yeah, as I said, all fees are included in the monthly repayment plan, so they don't have to do any additional upfront payments to the debt counsellor and try and make arrangements for that. Everything is included. And yeah, for us as Debt Rescue, we have the infrastructure. We can assist consumers anywhere in South Africa. We've got all the infrastructure to help them. COVID has taught us all how to be very smart digitally and technologically. So yeah, we can assist completely in that way. And that's the high level detail of debt counseling.
Thank you so much, Anneline. Listen, this was a lot of information. And I can tell you now that we at SADAG get a lot of calls from people who say they've been to a debt counselor, or who say, please refer me to a debt counselor. But we've also had a lot of problems with regards to debt counselors and organizations that deal with debts, where people regret doing it. And I'm sure that a lot of counselors have questions in that regard. Can you please, guys, put them on the chat box for Neil and Anneline to answer? And I'm sure they have quite a lot of them. Would you be able to do that, Anneline, to answer questions of the chat box?
Absolutely. Neil, I'm just quickly having a look through the chats here, so I can just assist here. Tracy's question: do you pay for debt counselling? Yes, there is a fee, but it's like I said, it's all incorporated, and it's based on each individual's specific circumstances. So it's connected to the amount that they can afford to repay, etc. But again, no upfront, all included in the monthly repayment plan that gets calculated for the consumer. So he doesn't have to pay his as well as his
yeah, please put yourself on mute. Sorry, guys.
No problem. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I just want to quickly read here.
And I'm sure, Anneline, there is quite a lot of questions. I think I could move on to the next speaker, and then maybe you can type the request, because I see a lot of them are coming up again.
I see that.
So, yeah, and I knew this was going to happen with your talk. So okay. I have a thrill with those questions. Okay, guys. So next up, it is Lebu and Akona from SASA. Are you guys here? Lebu and Akona?
Good day, Senzekile. My name is Lebu Tema. I am here.
Awesome. Thank you, Lebu. Please share your screen and let's see if that works. You are on mute. Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. That's Lebo Tema from SASA. And I'm not sure if I'll be able to share my screen. Maybe I would need your help.
Okay, let me see.
And I'm really excited to be here with you. And thanks to the previous speakers, I was listening attentively. Tracy, and the previous speaker, sorry, I forgot the name. It was really nice being here.
I'm just trying to find your presentation and then I'll share it, okay?
Thank you so much.
Or Tracy, if it's close by you, can you please share it?
Let me, I'm also locating it. I have it.
Great sense, I'm onto it. There you go, Akona, you're on.
Awesome.
Lebohang, you're on.
She's always much
Yes,
quicker than I am. Great.
Okay. Thank you. We can go to this. Can I shoot?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you once more and hi to everyone. We can go to the next slide. I'm Lebo Tema. I work for SASA. I'm at head office and I'm responsible for operations management for the agency. And I will be sharing with you what actually the core business of SASA is and the how part of it and how to access our services. Yes, you know, we cover a lot of people around the country, a lot of millions in actual sense, and we distribute those billions of rands on a month-to-month basis. And even if I say so myself, that money does make a lot of difference, more especially around this COVID period, whereby we see a lot of influx into our system because most of the people are losing jobs, people are not employed, and therefore facing undue hardship. Hence, they become eligible for receipt of grants. And going to the first slide, we all know that in South Africa, you know, we have our constitution that is a pillar of our activities, whereby it is a constitutional right for eligible people in our country to qualify for a grant. And social grants, yes, they are readily available. However, you need to meet an eligibility criteria to qualify for social grants. And all social grants, except for the foster care grant or foster child grant, are means tested, and there is a threshold. You need to go through an application process that will determine whether you are eligible or you meet the qualifying criteria or not. And there is a payment process that we will cover in our discussion today. Next slide. And in terms of the constitutional right, we abide by section 27(1), whereby it says everyone has the right to have access to social security, including if they're unable to support themselves and their dependents. And therefore they need to have access to social assistance. Number 2 of the same section on the Constitution states that the state must take reasonable legislative and other measures within its available resources to achieve the progressive realization of each of these rights. So every person who is eligible for these grants is being protected by the Constitution in terms of this these grants. In as much as we have a budget from our national treasury, we need to also operate within our available resources. Tracy, can I have the next slide, please? And as SASA, we are with our key responsibility or mandate is to administer social grants in accordance with the Social Assistance Act of 2004. This legislation makes it possible for us to provide the following grant types. We provide an older person's grant. We provide war veterans grant, a grant for people with disability. Under this one, we have a temporary disability grant, and we also have a permanent disability grant. We have a grant that we call grant in aid. We have foster child grant. We have a care dependency grant. We have child support grant and social relief of distress grant. In the next slides, I'll be explaining how each of these grants, operate. How do you qualify? How much you get for each of the following grants? We'll start with the older persons grant. For any person to qualify for this grant type, one should be either a South African citizen, be a permanent resident, or hold a refugee status in South Africa. They must be over 60 years of age. They must reside in South Africa, meaning even if you get a grant while you are in South Africa, a permanent resident and refugee, it means if you then decide, oh, I'm going back to my country, you need to really declare that I am no longer in the country and I'm no longer eligible. You cannot just come have a grant and then you go back to your country for 5 years and you're still getting the grant. You should be, therefore, you need to be residing in the country, unless you're just visiting for a month or two or coming back. But also you have the responsibility to inform us that I will be out of the country for this number of months, maybe 3 months, maybe visiting your daughter in America who is sick. You're going to be taking care of their medical condition, but you are coming back. But you owe us that information that for this period of time I will be going, but it's not permanent. It's for just a short period of time. Both applicant and the spouse need to meet the means test requirements. Remember, I said we means test. There is eligibility criteria, so we evaluate your means. I'll be talking to the means test and the threshold later in the slides, and then you'll realize how do we means test each and every type of the grant. You can only receive one grant. For example, many times than not, we find that somebody gets an old age grant while they have been receiving a disability grant from a younger age. So they're under the impression that when I get to 60 years old, I'll get another grant, which is called old age grant. No, the minute you get to 60 years or you become 60 years of age, we convert your disability grant into an old age grant. So you'll still get one grant. Luckily for these grants, they are of the same amount. So nothing changes. We just change the name of your grant from disability grant to old age grant. And then when it comes to older persons grant, we pay two different amounts. If you are under the 75 years of age, we pay you an amount less 20 rands. For those who are 75-year-old, we want them to buy ice cream. So we give them 20 rands extra. Next slide, please. So that's the only difference. The grant is the same. The only difference is that the over 75 gets 20 rands more. Tracy? And then the qualifying criteria for war veterans grants. This is the same as for the older persons grants in terms of the qualifying criteria, except that the person must have served full-time in the Second World War or the Korean War. We have a very little number of this beneficiaries of this grant, because you can imagine that those wars happened a long time ago. So we are seeing attrition in terms of the number of people that are still left who served in those wars. So I think now we're around 50 something in number. So every other month we're seeing a decline in the number. And they also receive an additional amount of 20 rands per month, because most of them are above the age of, in fact, all of them are basically above the age of 75. Tracy? And the qualifying criteria for disability grants. Again, you must be a resident, you must be a South African or a permanent resident and a refugee aged between 18 and 59 years. The reason we start at 18 years is because before the age of 18, you would probably maybe be qualifying for child support grant and maybe care dependency grant. The applicant must reside in South Africa, have a medical condition or disability which renders them unable to accept employment. The disability must be of more than 6 months duration. Otherwise, it would have been a temporary disability grant. For temporary disability grant, anything from 6 to 12 months and permanent. So if you receive a temporary disability grant, it means your disability renders you unable to acquire employment or to earn an income for 6 to 12 months. So we'll give you that grant on a temporary basis while you are recovering from whatever that is hindering you physically to be in the labor force or to earn an income. But then the permanent disability is from, it will be paid longer than 12 months. And then applicants and spouse must also meet the criteria set in the means test. So you also means test the permanent disability grant. Can we go to the next slide? And then there's a care dependency grant, which is also another grant under disability grant. This grant is paid to a primary caregiver, foster parent, or biological parent of the beneficiary. The primary caregiver must be also, again, a South African citizen, permanent resident, or refugee. The child must be under 18 years of old. So in other words, care dependency grant is a grant that is paid to a, if for example, if I make an example, I am a mother, I have a child that needs 24-hour care. So there is an additional amount that would be paid to me because I cannot go out and work and leave a permanently disabled child unattended, hence a care dependency grant. The child must be under the age of 18, which means they require 100% or 24-hour care or extended amount of care. And the permanent caregiver and the child must be together residing in South Africa. The child must have physical or mental disabilities such that the child requires and receive permanent care or support service. The primary caregiver and the spouse must meet the requirements of means test threshold. So we also means test this type of a grant, like I said earlier on, with the exception of foster care parents, meaning if I am a foster parent, and I take a child that I'm taking care of as a foster child, I would not be means tested, even if the child is disabled. So I'll get the full amount. So with regard to the foster child grant, the child must be under the age of 18 years and legally placed in the care of the foster parent or parents. So it doesn't mean I'll just grab my aunt's cousin's child and live with them and expect the state to pay me. So there should have been a legal placement of the child under my care or under my care with my spouse or my husband, that we are legally taking care of this child. And the foster parents and foster child must reside in South Africa. Again, the foster parents must be South Africans, permanent residents, or refugees. Foster child grant may continue after child reaches the age of 18 years. So because this child is not like biologically ours, we're residing with this child. If this child is still attending any educational program or in school, if I may use simple terms, the foster care grant can continue beyond the age of 18 up to 21 years, because the intention is for us to ensure that, or for the state to ensure that this child after the age of 18 is not now, I mean, we've been paying for this child from whatever the age until 18 years, they complete their matric. So we do not now want to dump the child when they have to get education that will make them able to get the education that will enable them to acquire employment. Hence, we are willing to pay the foster child grant until the age of 21 years, as long as we have proof that they are still at school. And this is not means tested, because we're trying to keep these children as safe and with those families as much as possible. And we're also trying to keep these children in the families and less into institutions as much as possible. So we're trying to keep them within a normal family structure. Tracy? And child support grant, this is where we pay masses of our qualifying beneficiaries. And this grant is paid directly to a primary caregiver. By primary caregiver, we mean I as Lebo or you as Senzekile. You have a child, you move from Durban to Joburg, you leave your child with your mother, you come and work in Joburg, but you're earning a little income, you still qualify for child support grant. We need the money to go to the primary caregiver. We're not saying the mother. The primary caregiver of the child, the person who's taking care of the immediate needs of the child. So in simple terms, we want the money to go to the person who is with the child 24/7, meaning that would be your mother. So many times the note, we find that the mother is in Joburg, the child is in Limpopo with the grandmother, but the mother is in Joburg using the money for their hair, lipstick, and makeup. So we'd really want to emphasize that the money should be paid to the primary caregiver. The primary caregiver must be a South African citizen, permanent resident, or refugee like other grant types. Both primary caregiver and the child must reside in South Africa. And the grant is limited to a maximum of 6 children if they are not the biological children of the primary caregiver. So if it's your aunt living with your children in Durban and you are in Joburg, your aunt can only live with 6 children that are not hers. Because we were, at some point, we had to really bounce our heads together. We find that, oh, there's this person who's a primary caregiver to 12 children. By law, that should be a crèche or an institution of giving, a registered institution of taking care of children. It should be either a nursery or something. It cannot be a home with a mother with 12 children. There should be some legal, it should be a legal entity, because the safety of children should also come into play there. And the child must be, all the children or child must be under the age of 18. And if the child is between the age of 7 and 18 years of age, remember, this is the state's money. We prefer that the child should attend school. You can't just be sitting with a child that is between the age of 7 up to 18 years and the child is just sitting and not attending school. I mean, education in South Africa is free. We have public schools. So we prefer that the child is at school so that in the long run, we break the cycle of poverty. However, we do not decline the applications for child support grant if we do not have proof of school attendance. But we do require that at some point you bring it in. But we will not disqualify an application if we have a pending proof of school attendance. But there will be a record that please bring a proof of school attendance. Because we're caught between a rock and a hard place. You do not deny a child food, shelter, or clothes simply because the parent or the applicant who's an adult did not bring a proof of school attendance. And the primary caregiver and spouse must meet the requirements of a means test. So we do means test this type of grant. And as for social relief of distress, I love all my grant types, and my heart also, sits on this one because it's an immediate relief. If your house burns and you are left with your clothes and your ability to speak, this is where you come and say, this is me and my 2 kids. I had to run for my life. I have nothing between me and life. Sasa, if you don't help me now, I've got nothing. Then you qualify for social relief of distress. In formal terms, you need to be a South African citizen again. You need to be a permanent resident. You need to be a refugee, a legal refugee. We can give it to people in cluster foster care schemes in South Africa. We give this type of assistance to people who have insufficient means to support themselves. People in a crisis situation who do not have food to eat at that point in time. We give it to a person or persons who are awaiting permanent of an approved grant or to be repaid if provided as a voucher. Simply put, if you come to SASSA and you apply for a social grant and it is approved, but you're approved on the 10th of the month, you are only going to get your grant at the beginning of the next month. You still have 20 days to go without any income or means to support yourself. Just tell the person who's assisting you with the grant that, you know what, I'm glad my grant is approved, but between now and the date you are telling me that my money is going to be paid, I have nothing. Then they'll push you they will advise you to apply for social relief of distress. The law or our policy says you need to get this assistance within 3 days. So we can either give you a food voucher for you to go to your registered store. They will guide you in the office where it will give you a voucher, take an application for a voucher, you go and you redeem it and you get your food. And we can also give it to cash, but I'll discuss that when we get to disaster-related issues. And we also give it to persons who are disabled for a period of less than 6 months. So if you are disabled for a period of 6 months, we can give you voucher month 1, month 2, month 3. So you can be on this program. Or if a breadwinner in a family has died, and you make an application for social relief of distress within 12 months of the death of a breadwinner, we can give you social relief of distress. If a breadwinner for a particular family has been admitted into a private or public institution for at least 1 month, we can give you social relief of distress. Let's say somebody is sick and they've been working, and upon being admitted into a hospital for a month, you cannot get, there's nobody to support that family. You can approach us and say, here is proof the breadwinner is gone. All of us now have no one to support us. We'll give you social relief of distress. If somebody is arrested, they're in prison, we can give social relief of distress. If you have been affected by disasters, just say you had turned on your gas stove, something happened, you're not insured, your house burns down. You just grab your kids and run. Come and say, here's proof, my house is gone, I have nothing, help me. Then we'll help you under social relief of distress. That is called humanitarian support. Under this, we provide hot meals, we provide the toiletries, vanity packs, mattresses, blankets. We can even provide cash in case of death. Let's say somebody passes on within that disaster incident, we'll give you 2 amounts equivalent to an older person's grant, so that we help with the burial or whatever, any arrangements for the funeral. And another thing that we do there is that we can offer you social relief of distress for 3 consecutive months. And under extreme cases, when you have received it for 3 months, you can come back and say, hey, I have an extreme situation here. I still cannot support myself. You will come and then we can extend it to another 3 months. And this is also dependent on the availability of funds. Yes, we get quite hundreds of millions for this program to offer support. So yeah, that's what we call immediate relief for people in distress and people facing undue hardship. So it is available at SASSA. And now let's talk about means test. Means test. All social grants, like I said before, with the exception of foster child grant, I have also explained this one, are means tested. This means income of a primary caregiver and the spouse, regardless of the method of marriage, as long as there's money coming in or assets. In or out of community of property, customary rights, Asian tenants is taken into account because there are people who can afford to take care of their families. How about we become civil people and leave government funds to people who really deserve them? I believe you and I cannot just wake up and say we're going to apply for social assistance, but we still find people coming. That's why we had to put means test to say you afford, you cannot afford, and really make sure that the money goes to the people who really deserve. And the income of any source is recognized: salary, wages, interest from investments, private pensions, etc. Only recognized deductions are contributions to income, such as tax, UIF, pension fund, and medical aid. Combined income cannot exceed the threshold set per grant type. So you'll see that there are tables below that shows you how we calculate this. Assets are not taken, assets not taken into account for means test for child grants. So that is as self-explanatory as that. So this is just to show you that for old age grant and disability grants, including war veterans grants, the assets threshold is sitting at 1,247,400 for a single person, 2,494,300 for marital. This is actually high. So it's actually easy to get access to this. And then income per month.
Lebo, we have lost you.
This grant does
Hi, Akona. It's Tracy from
not
SADAG.
stand on its
I'm
own
not
because
sure
it is linked
if
to
everyone
the
can hear Lebo,
actual
but she's breaking.
I said, grant you require
Lebo, perhaps, Lebo, if you could perhaps maybe just repeat the start of this last slide. Maybe you want to leave your camera off just to save on bandwidth. If you can hear me.
Okay. Lebo, can you hear? Colleagues, can I just continue where Lebo
Yes.
left off?
Thank
Colleagues, for the old age grant, disability grants, and the war veterans and the income thresholds, the maximum income that a single household can have is 7,310. When in a married kind of household, whether in or out of community of property is that, and it has an inverse relationship to income that is declared, meaning a sliding scale. The higher end, the lower the grant until you get to the threshold that's listed here. And then the granting aid is a supplement grant. So when the primary grants fall away, it will also subside. Colleagues, a special note here is given to the care dependency grant. If you note, the income threshold for the care dependency grant is rather high, and that's possibly a government response to respond to the cost of disability of having a child or a care dependent child whose disabilities attract costs related to disability. And then married, if you married, then you also see the care dependency grant compared to the child support grant, the income threshold is rather high. And that's government response to say, we do acknowledge that there are costs of disability that we would incur as parents. But also to say that Lebo spoke to permissible deductions on top. Medical aid deduction is one of the permissible deductions that are permissible in law. And another thing is that the primary residence, in terms of the income threshold, it's then exempted by government. So
I'm so sorry, Akona. Sorry to disturb you. Thank you so much for the amazing and great information. I think that maybe if we could try and wrap up now, just so that we can allow for the last speaker to be able to speak. If we could just wrap up, and then for any more information, everyone can please put their questions on the chat box or comments on the chat box, and then Akona and Ulebo would be able to answer the questions. Thank you so much, Akon.
Okay, colleagues, I'll just basically summarize. There is an application process that is highlighted before you. There are grant types that one can do an online application. If you go to a SASSA website, you'll see which grant types that you can do and actually an online application. It will also guide you in terms of these requirements that are required. And even for disability-related grants, which is the disability grant, care dependency grant, granting aid, the booking for an assessment to see a doctor, because it's a pre-application requirement, you can do it via the GovChat platform in terms of going to the website of GovChat, and then you can make a booking on your preference. Colleagues, the payment process is highlighted there as well. There are different access channels from which you can be paid into, but we promote that you are paid through your bank because there are validations built into the banks. But we also would want to make sure that as we pay people, we have then staggered the payments so that we also respond to the influxes and the COVID situation we find ourselves in. Colleagues, thank you. I'll end there.
Thank you so much, Akona and Sislebo. I think the information that we received today, especially with regards to SASSA, is mind-blowing. I didn't know, guys, that we have got so many of grants that are available for people in South Africa. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time. And please stay so that you can answer the questions from counselors. Counselors, this is your chance. Ask the questions. And coming up next is Tolagele Mchunu. Tolagele, are you here? Tolagele?
Hello.
Hello, Tolagele, you here?
Hi. Oh, yes, I'm.
Hi.
Can I
Okay,
please ask
great.
you to first upload the slide for the funding?
Oh.
The grant, the voucher, and the grant slide.
The funding. Let's see, I'm very bad at technology, so you'd have to give me a moment.
Okay, it's the second attachment. It's just one page.
Okay, I think I found it. Is it this one?
Yes, yes,
Awesome.
thanks so much. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Tolagele. I'm from the NYDA. I'm just here just to represent the NYDA and talk about our products and services that the NYDA renders. But firstly, before I do that, I would like to give a bit of a background about the NYDA. The National Youth Development Agency was established in 2009 following a merger between Usobomvu Youth Fund and the National Youth Commission. The NYDA was formally launched on June 16 in 2009. The NYDA plays a lead role in ensuring that all major stakeholders, like your government sector, the civil society, and we prioritize youth development and contribute towards identifying and implementing large solutions which addresses youth development challenges. The NYDA has adopted key performance areas, which is your economic participation. We assist and facilitate youth participation in the economy, leading to improve of their livelihoods through NYDA grants in financial support and non-financial support interventions. We also do education and skills development. We promote access to qualifying education and skills to both in and out of school youth through targeted interventions. We also do policy and research to create and promote youth development information and knowledge, and that informs the public sector. Okay. The National Youth Development has shifted its core business primarily away from the enterprise finance towards education and skills development. The fundamental change in this area of development is the change from loan provisions to grant provisions for the young entrepreneurs. We no longer do loans, we are now giving grants. Previously, we used to offer loans. The NYDA no longer offer loans. The objectives of the grant program is to provide young entrepreneurs an opportunity to access both the financial and the non-financial business development support to establish their survivalist business. The program focuses on youth entrepreneurs who are just coming into existence and are beginning to display signs of future potential, but are not fully yet developed. The grant finance starts from a minimum of 1,000 Rand up to a maximum of 200,000. For any individual of youth cooperative, the agriculture and technology related project has a minimum of 250,000. Okay. I'll then like to explain what's on the slides. Our grant, it has 4 thresholds, but to qualify for this grant, you need to be between the ages of 18 up to 34 and 9 months. You need to be a South African citizen. The first threshold ranges from 1,000 up to 10,000. With this threshold, you don't need to register your business, but you need to have all these attachments which are listed on the slides. We also have a second threshold. The second one, it ranges from 10,000 up to 50,000. With this one, you need to have a registered business, and at least your business must be operational for about 6 months or more. And the supporting documents are as follows: a proof of business registrations, your certified ID copy, all the things that are listed on the slides. The third threshold ranges from 50,000 up to 100,000. With this one, you need to have a registered business, and your business must be operational for a minimum of 12 months. We also have fourth threshold. The fourth threshold ranges from 100,000 up to 200,000. The business needs to be operational for a minimum of 36 months with this one. We also offer other services. We have programs such as your voucher program, right? A voucher program, can you please go up a bit? Thank you. Right, with the voucher program, it's a free program. All our programs are free. I think, can you please move a bit up? I mean down. Yes, there you go. Okay, the grant requirements, these are the grant requirements that one needs to have. You need to have a proof of market to access our grants. You need to have a bank statement or a business bank statement for the past 6 months. You need to have a proof of residence. Your company needs to be registered as well. Can you please go down again? The company needs to be registered. You need to have a certified ID copy. We need a tax clearance. We need a business plan, a lease agreement if you're gonna be renting. We need you to have a signed company management accounts. We need you to have all the compliant documents. For example, your CIDB for construction, your health certificates for restaurants. We need you to have your CV and certified copies of your ID. We need you to have an assets register. We need you to have an EDP qualification or a diploma or any business management entrepreneurship. Okay, with this one, we also offer an entrepreneurship development program which one can attend. We also need a quotation from your suppliers because we don't give you the money, we give the money to the suppliers. So we'll need you to at least have 3 quotations from the suppliers. Okay. Can I please ask you to go down? Okay. We also have another program which is called a voucher. A voucher, these are the services that they render under the voucher, which you are entitled to apply for 4 services under this voucher. But you can only apply for one at a time. You can't apply for all of them at the same time. To qualify for this service, you must be between the ages of 18 to 35. You need to be a South African citizen. You need to have a registered business. These are all the services that they offer under the voucher. We have your business feasibility, we have your due diligence, your business plan, your business operation, we have business re-engineering. You can do a website development and hosting. We can do a market strategy and planning. We have bookkeeping and financial administration. Okay, To qualify for this voucher, you need to have a certified ID copy. You need to have a company registered, as I've mentioned, and you need to attend an EDP, entrepreneurship development training, or if you have a business management qualification, you can just attach your certificates. You also need to have a business profile. I have mentioned that you can apply for these services 4 times, but you can only apply for 1 at a time. We also offer training programs. Training programs that we have are the business trainings. The Entrepreneurship Development Program is aimed at creating conducive environment for young entrepreneurs to access relevant entrepreneurship skills, knowledge, values, and attitude for their businesses. We also offer mentorship programs. The mentorship programs, it's a volunteer entrepreneurship program. It's a program that provides mentorship support to young youth in business. Mentors and young entrepreneurs are accessed, qualified, and meshed to form an ongoing mentoring relationship aimed at improving the sustainability and growth of a startup or an existence business for South African young entrepreneurs. The objective of this program is to transfer skills and knowledge among South African young entrepreneurs, and also to increase the sustainability and growth chances for the business. We also have Market Linkage Program. The Market Linkage Program is a program aimed at assisting young entrepreneurs to access business and relate opportunities from opportunity providers in the public sector. Let's say you have a farm, you have a farm, you are making mushrooms, and you'd want your mushrooms to be at Spar or Checkers. This program can actually assist you to link your products so that they can be at a Spar or a Checkers. We also have to Song Fund a program. The NYDA receives daily requests from young people, schools, community centers, and NGOs seeking for assistance. This program assists young people to be able to get funding for community centers or NGOs. Yeah, I think that's about it. For more information, you can just visit our website, which is www.nyda.gov.za, to access all these products and services that I've just discussed.
Thank you so much, Tholakele. And I know that we do not have time anymore. We literally left with 5 minutes. Tholakele, do you want to wrap up, or do you want me to view the other slide, or can people just ask questions for this remaining time? Yes, I think that is what we should do. Guys, if you have any questions for any of our speakers and you would like to ask them, please take this time to do that. I still have got all of them here. Comments or questions?
Senzi, I think we can also confirm that we can also share the questions and the answers from our experts on a PDF when we share the link and the recording. So it will be grateful, extremely helpful for them to get it in writing. So thank you to everyone.
Great, thank you. Yes, just to reiterate that. So what we will do is that we're going to send you the slide presentations. I'm getting a lot of WhatsApps on the side where people are asking, am I going to get this information? Because I understand that it's really useful information for everybody to have. So we are going to send you the slides. If you ask the questions on the chat, we're going to copy them into a Word document, and then we're going to send it to you again with the answers via email. All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Tracy, before we log off, and I see Lebo is still online from SASA. It's a question that was posted a couple of times. Can fathers, can dads apply for SASSA grant for the children?
That's a good question. You are on mute, Lebu, sorry.
I'm not sure if
Yes.
Lebu is there, but yes,
Yes, I am here.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yes, fathers can apply
Lebogang
for.
or Akona, are you able to answer the question? Can dads apply for a grant for the children?
Yes, fathers can apply. Any primary caregiver can apply. Fathers are parents, therefore they can apply for the grant. Did you get the answer, Senzele?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yes. So fathers, Tracy, they can definitely apply for the grants. All right. So guys, this brings us to the end of our session. Thank you so much for coming through. If you still have questions, I'm going to be here. You can post them on the chat, and then I will pose the questions to the speakers via email. Otherwise, we can all go and enjoy our shifts if we have a shift, and happy counseling going forward. And thank you so much to all our speakers.
Thank you so much.
If anyone has a last question, you can quickly post it on the chat so that I can record it and we can get it back to you.